It's May the 13th, and welcome to Morning Message. In many churches, you'll find candles, and very often on the tops of those candles, where the flame is, you also find ornamental pieces of brass. Sometimes they're glass, sometimes they're plastic. But they're often referred to as toppers, but they can also be referred to as followers. And I think that's because they follow the path of the candle as it burns down. One of the organists that I knew in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, Cynthia Kraft, and I know you're watching, Cynthia. After church, she would go up to the altar and straighten these pieces of brass because inevitably during the service, as the candle burnt down, the follower would get a little crooked, and if it wasn't corrected right away, it was harder to do after the wax had become solid again. So that was one of the things she used to do. There was one Sunday morning when I had been down at the entrance of the church after church and, shaking hands with people. And I was walking back to the vestry, and Cynthia was straightening up these followers. And she looked at me and she said, "I'm straightening the followers," which I think is your job. She and I had a great laugh about that, not only then, but for years afterwards. We would joke about that. If I caught her straightening the followers, I would accuse her of taking my job. Because that is one of the things that people think clergy are supposed to do, and that is to straighten out the members of their church, the followers of Jesus Christ. As I said, we laughed about that joke for many years, but it does speak to that idea that people have of the role of clergy. I would probably add to that to say that it's also the responsibility of the followers or lay people to straighten out their clergy from time to time as well. But I think the church is rightfully accused sometimes of being judgmental. And that wasn't what Cynthia was talking about. That wasn't what the joke was about. But people do experience us as being judgmental. And we have to guard against that, because that's not really the expectation that we have of the church. It'd be better to say that we have very high expectations of ourselves, that we expect a high standard of ourselves as members of the body of Christ. And when somebody falls, when somebody steps out of place, the last thing in the world that they need is to be judged. When I've fallen, when I've stumbled, I know that I have, and I don't need anybody to tell me that I have. But what I perhaps do need is a helping hand, and that's really what the church ought to be doing. Much, much less judging, and much, much more stretching out a helping hand to help people straighten up their lives and do those things that they expect of themselves as members of the church. I think that's a much healthier way to think about the way that we interact as Christians with one another, and the way that we should interact with the world. Much more in terms of helping others, and much, much less in the sense of judging others. I hope that you feel God's blessing and God's helping hand in your life this day. Amen.